We have a leak in our ceiling and there's a bathtub right above it. So we're going to try to find out where the leak is. You can see the ceiling has been patched, but it's cracked and there's still water leaking through there. So I'm going to measure from this wall, will be my index. If you look here, this spot is between about 54 and 58 inches from my reference position that way. And this way it's about, roughly 13 or so. Okay, now I'm going to measure upstairs. I'm in the bathroom. You can see this is the same reference wall. There's some tile that adds about an inch. But I'm going to measure from there over to here. The drain is at about 50 inches. The plumbing is at about 58 inches. It leads me to believe, well, and this is about 13 inches. So it's the right distance this way. It sort of leads me to believe the leak is in here. So I'm going to take off these and see if I see any leaks in here before I narrow it down to the drain. The reason this is important is because if the leak is behind here, then I need to fix it from here, and it doesn't do me any good to tear the ceiling apart downstairs because I can't reach from below there all the way up here to try to get to this leak. And if the leak is here, it doesn't do me any good to tear apart the ceiling. So I want to eliminate all of these before I tear the ceiling apart. The first thing you do is you remove this little plug from this hole. I think you can see it. I'm going to turn this on. The water's going to come on. Well, water didn't come on. So you can see there's a little hole under there. First of all, I pull this plug out, and then there's a little Allen screw in there that I have to loosen. It's just a little set screw that holds this handle on. I'll loosen that, pull the handle off, and then I've got 2 screws here to take out to get that plate off. You notice I have this little strainer put on the drain. That's because if you drop any of these little tiny parts, especially like this little thing, it's going to go right down the drain. So either close your drain or put a rag or a strainer over it to keep from losing parts. Okay, I got the handle off. You can see this is how the Allen wrench goes into that little set screw. It turns out the handle has to be pulled out because when it's closed, this little ring is in the way, so you have to open the valve, turn this, loosen it up, and bring it out. When I turned on the valve to loosen the set screw, it started dripping like crazy down below. So I just wanted to check in here and see if anything's wet. And if you see, doesn't seem to focus on that very well. But that looks really dry, and the pipe going up here looks really dry too. And so it doesn't look like it's coming from this valve. These are the inlets. They would leak all the time because they have pressure to them all the time. The top and bottom ones only get pressurized when you open the valve. And so they look dry, so I don't think it's up in here. Next, I'm going to check this and just see if the plumbing behind here is wet at all. Okay, I took this off and I'm looking in there. That does actually look just a little bit wet. I'll show you what this does. This is the faucet. This just threads into that fitting in there. I took it out. This looks dry, but it looks a little wet in there. So I'm going to take this apart, put the pipe in there tight, and run it and see if it's still leaking. Okay, I got that out of there, and now I'm going to put a clean wrap of Teflon tape on there, put it back in, and run it and see if it still leaks. If it does, it's got to be related to the drain. If it's just this, then I can repair it here and not have to tear open the ceiling. Okay, I've got that tightened back in. Now I'm going to run water into the tub and see if I still get a leak down below. You can see the water running here. look into that hole and see if I can see any kind of leakage, but I don't think I will. You can't really see too well from here. Yep, it's leaking a lot right here. So that means it must be related to the drain, because I checked all the others and eliminated them. I put a tarp down to catch a lot of the debris that falls right below where it's dripping, and my next step is to cut in there with a hole saw. Okay, this is what a hole saw looks like. It has a sharp point so you can just push it through the drywall and start to saw and just cut some of that drywall away. Okay. Put this through. Looks like I might have hit something there. Leaking like a sieve. Okay, so you can see it dripping right here. I'm trying to see what it's coming off of. It could just be this fitting is loose. I'm going to try tightening that first. It also looks kind of wet up on the other end of that elbow, so we'll have to see. Okay, I have the pliers up in here, and I can turn this and loosen it, and then while I thread this down, it looks to me like this is broken. I don't know if you can see this. If there was a light shined right on it, you can see this is cracked and broken so that it wasn't tightly sealing right there. So I'm going to have to replace this, and hopefully that will get it. Okay, I got the trap out, and I'm looking. If you see this, this was cracked and broken. So that's where that leak was coming from. And so this is PVC'd on here, it's glued. I'm gonna have to cut this back, put a coupler, put a little bit of new pipe in here so that I can glue on a new elbow, and then put all this back together again. But at least we found what the leak is. Okay, so these are the new parts I got. On the old one, it was broken right here, and this threaded part of the fitting was broken also. It turns out this one is a little bit longer, a little bit wider than the other one was, but I can make it work because this is a swivel, and I'll show you what happens. You can swivel it like this at different angles however you need, and so what I can do is swivel it a little bit over to make that distance the same as it was, and then I'm just going to cut this piece to the right length. I've got this coupling here, and so what I'm going to do now, there's the pipe that's in there. I'm going to cut it, put this coupling on there, then I'm going to cut this to the right length to make all this fit in there, and then assemble it up in the ceiling. Okay, so this is the broken piece. I cut it off of here, and then what I can do with this is put a coupler on there. Okay, so I can slide this coupler onto here and use that to couple this over to the P-trap. Okay, I'm going to do what they call a dry run. Before I glue this, I'm going to put these parts together and make sure everything fits. I'm going to put this in here first. I'm going to put this on here next, get it lined up. Then I've got to move this over and get it to where it lines up on that, and make sure this is going to thread onto there. Okay, everything fits. So now I'm going to put glue on these parts, glue them together, and hope the whole thing works. When you're using this stuff, it's messy. So wear gloves, and if you get it on anything that you need to get off, lacquer thinner is a good solvent for this. Paint thinner won't work on it, but lacquer thinner will get it off. Okay, I have the parts glued together. You'll notice I made a small mark here during the dry run. So when I glued them, I lined up those two marks to be sure that this was going to be perfectly level to fit with the other piece. So I'm going to give this about 15 minutes to dry before I assemble the parts. Okay, I put everything back in. It's all glued. I tightened it all up. Now we'll do a leak test. We'll run the tub and see if it leaks. Okay, the water is running. I don't know if you can hear it. And it looks like it's dry. It looks like it's working. There's that fitting right there. It looks dry. This is dry around here. Those two look like they're dry. I think it's working. And that's the tub fitting, and it looks like it's dry. So it might be time to close this hole back up. Rather than patch the ceiling, we decided just to put an access panel there, and then that way if there's any other problems we can just very easily get up in there and fix them. So that's the job all finished up.